At CBF, we know that for you to change your body, you need to change your mind. Exercise and eating healthy is only part of the plan. We care about our members as we care about our family because our members become our family. It is not about competition but support. It is not about being the strongest or the fastest, but about you defeating your negative self. It is about working together and making the task challenging and have fun. By the end, what matters is not how hard the session was, but that you take control of your mind so you can take control of your body. My name is Sandro Torres, and I'm happy you are part of our family. Welcome to Custom Body Fitness. Welcome everybody to another great interview here in Body and Mind Transformation by Custom Body Fitness. Today we have a great guest. His name is James Lebeg. Correct me if I pronounce your last name incorrectly. He is the founder of nutritiontriathlon.com, hurrythefoodup.com, and he runs various triathlon. And he's also a sport nutritionist specialist. James, there is anything that I missed in your introduction?
No, that covers things well. So yeah, my name is James Lebeg, and I'm a sports nutritionist, and that's my kind of primary role at the moment, working with Hurry the Food Up. So we're a vegetarian-based website, primarily focusing on helping females lose weight with a vegetarian diet in a healthy, sustainable fashion. And then exactly as you say, I have my own company, Nutrition Triathlon, and I work with amateur and professional endurance athletes in a sports nutritionist capacity. I also work in family medicine or general practice here in the UK, and I have a role very similar to a family physician, and I work a couple of days clinically in practice a week doing that. So I have a bit of a range of work which I do, but it's good and it keeps me busy.
Okay, so now that we know who you are, tell me, how did you get into health? Why health? What happened in your life that you say, okay, health is what I want to focus on, and also why vegetarian?
Okay, so the health side of things actually comes back to when I was 10 or 11. So my father died when I was 10 or 11, and that was a bit of a hard time, to put it lightly. And at that point, I realized how nice and how helpful it was for people to be kind and help my family at that point. And that kind of gave me the motivation to think, at some point in my life, I want to give back and help others. So I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do or how to actually go about that. And it was one of those things that kind of fell into place. So when I was in sixth form, so in here in the UK we call it sixth form, so I was 17, I thought that I might want to do some sort of medicine, health related thing, and eventually decided on being a paramedic. So I went to university, did a couple of years, I did my degree as a paramedic, and worked in the ambulance service in an emergency frontline medicine for a couple of years. I then transitioned into general practice or family medicine, and that's what I still do now. On the side of things then, I just started developing over time an interest in endurance sports and nutrition. So more specifically, triathlon is where I specialize in. And I really enjoyed it. So I did my first triathlon, kind of got a little bit hooked and thought, this is great. And it was at a time when I was also just thinking, do I want to stay in family medicine forever? Do I want to do anything else? So I started looking at other things. I always like learning. I like university. I like the theory behind things. And I thought, well, I like exercise. I like science. I like food. Maybe I could just combine them. And so I decided to do just that and did a master's degree in sports and exercise nutrition, which kind of then led me down the whole road of sports nutrition and getting into that side of things.
Tell me now that you mentioned that your dad died when you were 10 and 11. Um, did it make a big change in your life? Did you notice any difference? Did you, because you were so young, it was, I'm not saying that a loss of a father is not painful. Of course, it's very painful because you were so young back then. Did you feel that?
Yes, but it's a really good point, and I think I probably got lucky in some ways that I was that age, because I think had I been older, it probably would have been harder, because I was at that age where perhaps you don't process it in quite the same way or understand it in the same way. And I think lucky is probably the right word, just because you kind of just develop in a different way. I mean, I think it shaped how I grew up and the choices I made. And so, in a weird way, I'm not sad about it, because I think the only way you can kind of move on is to accept it, process it, and see what you can learn and grow from it.
So that also, I'm only guessing, adding to what you're saying, also help you with um, overcoming difficult things with your clients when they're going into losing weight, into working for triathlons and so on. I mean, like you say, accept the reality and then keep going. It's different when you go through something hard and you know that somebody else can overcome other things.
Well, that's it, right? Because if you're working with clients, depending on your approach and I guess on the clients, how they work, some of them might like just a very kind of structured approach in that you must do this, you must do that. But most of the time, I would say that's probably not the best approach. And actually, you want to be able to connect with them. And I think probably a big part of that is empathy and actually understanding, because everyone's got their challenges that they face. And if it's weight loss, if it's performance, there's something which is going to make it that little bit harder. And I think if you're just very rigid in your approach and don't want to kind of connect with them on a slightly deeper level, then you're never going to build up that rapport and actually help them overcome things.
It's like you mentioned, right? What helped you to get into helping people was all these people who came to support your family when you need that support. You also want to be that person supporting other people. I kind of relate to you because my dad left my mom when she was pregnant, so I grew up without a dad. He was around, but he wasn't really in the house. But also, I didn't notice this. I started realizing when I was older, my mom was a heavy alcoholic. So I grew up with that fatherly model, and also with that really a mom that was at the house all the time, because I saw things that she did because of she was induced by alcohol. And I grew up, let's say, in the streets because nobody was really taking care of me. But like you say, you don't realize that when you're young, when you're very young. But when you older and you start noticing, it really affects the way you grew up and the decisions that you make. Anyway, let's go back to the questions. So why do you think health is important?
Yes, it's a very broad question, but I think health, well, it impacts on everything. So we've got mental health, we've got physical health, and I guess they both make up that health component. But it colours everything in our daily life. So it covers our ability to carry out everyday tasks, walk up the stairs, move around, talk to people, go outside, enjoy life. All of that is underpinned by our health. And I think, of course, there's an element of chance, I should say, but health is one of the things which, for the most part, especially if we start it young enough, that we can control and we can influence. And personally, my view on health is that I want to be able to carry on enjoying the things which I like for as long as possible. And that means staying as healthy as possible to be able to do that later on in life.
So why do you think some people don't really know the health is important?
I think probably most people know health is important. It might just be that they don't know how to make it better, but also, unfortunately, a lot of people are a product of circumstances and their environment, and might not necessarily have the power or the understanding to be able to change it. And I think that's not an unusual thing when it comes to weight, when it comes to mental health. There's so many things that actually tie into it. Let's use weight as an example. It's not as easy as just saying someone doesn't care about their weight. It's that they got to their weight because they went through a very tough time in their life and didn't necessarily know how to avoid it, or they got there and they don't know how to lose weight. So I suspect with most people, it's not necessarily that they don't care. It's that there's far more underlying it than that actually is more important. So that might be self-esteem, it might be motivation, it might be money, all of these things.
More like a psychological issue than they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's switch a little bit of gears and let's talk a little bit more about weight loss. So what do you think is the most important thing on a weight loss diet?
I would say there's two things which I would say are probably the most important. First is your approach to it, and by approach I mean how you frame it mentally. So I think one of the most important things with it is understanding that it's a process and it's a journey, and there's not a quick fix, and actually seeing it as something which you improve over time, but you have to stick to it. So we're talking consistency is really important, because I think one of the pitfalls that people have when they come to lose weight, and with different diets, with different exercise regimes, is that people want to lose weight quickly and they want something to essentially fix it for them. And that's just unrealistic. Those sort of things might work for like a week or two, maybe even a month or two. But over the long term, that's never going to work. So actually, if you approach it from this is a lifestyle change and something that must be maintained over months, years, then that's a really, really important starting point. Having an honest conversation with them, first of all, just exploring what their goals are and why, to actually get to the reason of what they want, and then just unpick the time frame. And I think it does depend on the individual person, because some people, for example, you might send them research, you might send them links to research articles which very clearly show sustainable time frames for weight loss, and there's potential implications of going on too strict or too severe a diet. Others, you might just want to build that friendly connection and talk to them about why or what their perceptions are with weight loss, because a lot of the time they don't necessarily know that what they're thinking is unrealistic. For example, if they might be trying to lose loads of weight over a short amount of time because they might have seen it somewhere or someone might have told them it. And so actually just establishing that conversation, talking to them and showing them why something like consistency is important or why changing the mindset is really useful, I think that's probably the starting point.
Okay, so you say there is two parts of what is important in the diet. The first on a weight loss diet. So the first thing was to know that it's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be a lifestyle change. What was the second one?
Second was consistency, and that's made up of a lot of different things. But it's kind of tied into that first one, but it's just understanding that because it's a long-term fix, or a long-term change, I should say, you have to build in habits that are maintained that you can maintain over time. And for example, with a diet, it must be a diet that someone can maintain over time. So something that they enjoy and can stick to. And when it comes to exercise, it's exercise again that they enjoy and can do over time. Because all of these things, we don't want them to be able to do it for 4 weeks, 6 weeks. We want them to do it for years. And if they do something that gets them to their goal weight in 3 months, 6 months, but it was so difficult that they've spent all of their brain power getting to that point, or they don't enjoy it, once they get to that point and things start to relax, or maybe they stop working with you or go it alone, all that happens is they put that weight back on because actually they've not done something which is sustainable.
Let me elaborate to what you're saying. I lately I've been assessing some of my clients, and I assess them all. As it says, my clients every 6 weeks. All of our members here in our studio. But lately, I've been noticing. I've been paying a lot of attention on this. That one of the things that you mentioned is when they said you already mentioned this. You know, they see all this in social media and all this advertising. They lose 50 pounds in 20 days or whatever. These unrealistic goals, they come and they want to do that. I sit with them and I talk to them and I tell them there is a lifestyle change. They need to slow down, and they don't need to come like you mentioned. They don't need to come and try to give it all in 1 month, because it's not realistic. They have lives, they have work, they have wives, husband, they have other things to do, and they have to put energy out there. So this needs to be part of their life. Anyway, so when I assess them the first month, usually most of our members, they do a great job because it's brand new. They change a lot of things in their eating, and their movement, exercise, and so on. The second assessment, they don't get the same results. And the reason is because they go back to who they used to be back in the past. They may keep some of the habits that we created in their plan, but that old program they have in their brain kicks in later. And then I told them, you did a great job. I mean, yeah, you make a lot of mistakes, but it's expected because the old you is kicking in again. So we need to fight that old you, and we need to go back and rechange a couple things that it was difficult for you to change this time. So you probably relate to that, to the things that you already mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next question. Do you have to exercise to lose weight?
Mm-hmm. No, but it helps. So realistically, weight loss is a very basic thing in the sense of you need to consume less calories. And by the way, let's caveat this in saying, regardless of what your kind of opinion is on calories, what sort of diet you're following, the basic principles are the same from a physiological point of view, in that you have to consume less calories than you burn, or that you use on a daily basis. Anything can get you there. You could just eat less, and that is definitely possible. And I've worked with people who don't really enjoy exercising, don't want to do it, and they're still able to lose weight. And we know that very clearly that you can, but it helps with weight loss in the sense of, one of the things that people will commonly struggle with is cravings and wanting to eat food. We can approach that in two ways. You can simply eat less food, and that means that you might go hungry, and then you have to have the willpower to be able to not eat. And for some people that works very well, and there's different strategies to be able to do that. But exercise by nature almost gives you a little bit more, because or leeway because exercise burns additional calories, and the goal isn't to have as few calories as possible. It's to put you in a sort of sustainable calorie range, and so exercise kind of will help people because you can eat more and lose weight, and for some people that can be very useful. But with that in mind, it's not that exercise is necessary for food, for calories, because that's a dangerous mindset. They're two distinct things, but it does help. And I think the other point which a lot of people might not necessarily grasp when they first start exercising, and this is a really common thing I've seen in a lot of the ladies who we work with are over 40, and most of them haven't, or a lot of them haven't exercised or feel that they have to do a certain exercise. So it might be running, something that they feel they have to do, swimming perhaps. But what I always talk to them about is that exercise can and should be fun, and it should make you feel good. So exercise doesn't necessarily have to always hurt. It doesn't have to always make you really sweaty. You can generally find something which you enjoy, and this comes back to the whole consistency and doing it over time.
Something that it fits into the person's lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly, and that they enjoy, because exercise should, when it's done right, make you feel great. So for some people that might be they get more of a hit off high intensity exercise, but for others it's just kind of allowing them to understand that even something like when you're starting out, a brisk walk or doing dancing is enough to actually start that exercise process, and you get the nice feeling afterwards that then not only helps with weight loss in that direct sense, but also from a mental health point of view, feels awesome. Because when people start doing that, they, rather than that thing that people often think is that when they start exercising, it's going to be really tiring and they're not going to have any energy. Actually, they start doing this exercise, they realize it can be fun, and it gives them more. They actually feel better for it. And that's a really, really nice thing to see.
Okay, so you mentioned calories, the importance of calories, and I'm guessing more than anything the nutrients that go with those calories. Let's go back to the question that we talk about vegetarian. Can you relate the weight loss and why vegetarian? Why I cannot eat candies or processed food or drink a lot of alcohol or anything that is not vegetarian or a lot of meat? If we're talking about calorie dense foods, did I stated that question correctly?
Yeah, I think I get what you mean. And basically, I suppose your question is, what should you follow a vegetarian diet? Is it useful for weight loss? But also, why can't you eat these other things? Alcohol.
Correct. Yeah. Why? Okay, if we're talking about calories, I can eat 200 calories of broccoli, or I can eat 200 calories of meat, or I can eat 200 calories. I can drink 200 calories of beer.
So my take on this, and this might be different to others, but this falls back into the kind of consistency sort of realm and looking at it over the long term. Now, I don't think that anyone necessarily needs to restrict any food from their diet, or that you should say that they shouldn't have a certain food or drink, because most food is somewhere on a spectrum of good and bad. A food is not specifically healthy or unhealthy, and actually rather than good or bad, I should say more like healthy, unhealthy, in that it's a bit more nuanced and it's a bit more grey than just saying it's healthy, unhealthy. So your example of alcohol or sweets, candies, processed food, in reality, they might not help with weight loss because they might not be that filling. So that's one of the things which is a common problem, is that they don't contain fiber, they don't contain protein, the sort of things which fill people up and make them feel satisfied. So that might mean that they're more likely to eat more of it and therefore consume more calories. Or, for example, with alcohol, it might make them make poor food choices, or they don't sleep very well, and then they don't sleep enough, which then in turn means that they're less likely to be able to stick to a plan or do their exercise. So there are those indirect problems that they cause. But I don't think that people need to restrict them completely if they are able to understand how they fit into someone or into their life. So, as an example, you can still lose weight by just eating processed food or just eating chocolate bars. You can do it, and there's been examples of people who have done this. There was the guy who just ate McDonald's for 90 days or whatever and lost a heck of a lot of weight. There's some professor who just ate, was it Twinkies, and lost weight. You can do it, and it is a calorie balance. That is, at its core, the most important thing. But it's just what helps you get to that place or get to your end goal. And for most people, eating lots of those things isn't helpful because it has the things I mentioned in terms of how well it helps them stick to a calorie deficit and follow their plan. But I think as well, I don't want to demonize food with clients either, or to create this air that foods should be banned and that you shouldn't eat them if you want to hit your goal, because you definitely can. So I would actually prefer to teach someone and to show them you can have those foods. It just has to be in moderation.
So, if I add to it, let me know. Let me know if we are on the same page. You said, for the example of alcohol. If you drink an alcohol, there is other side effects such as not sleeping well, feeling hangover, and so on, which it leads you to other things. Your body may not regenerate. You may not be able to be consistent with your eating and with your plan and so on. So that means that also those food doesn't help you to be healthy, right? Because by the end, I'm guessing people want to lose weight, not only to lose weight. What I have discovered is that people want to lose weight for two biggest reasons. One of them is for, which I'm not saying it's wrong. It's vanity. They want to look good. They want to feel good. And the second reason is for health. So if they eat those wrong food, they're probably not gonna be healthy because of the side effects of those wrong foods. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say they would be unhealthy because of them, because there's not. So, okay, alcohol is important to say that there's so much evidence that alcohol is not good for us, and that it's very, very clear that alcohol is unhealthy. It contributes to mortality risks, to cancer risks. It's not healthy. But if we're talking about sustainability and someone losing weight over time, sticking to a diet, it's understanding what works for them and does fit into their lifestyle. Because some people really, really, really want to drink. They want to have a beer. They want to have a glass of wine. And it's not that they can't. It might mean it's harder to lose weight, and it probably shouldn't be an everyday habit, but it can be built into a lifestyle if it's sustainable. And for example, I would rather someone does have a couple of beers on the weekend, but that means that they stick to their diet forever and actually they follow a healthy plan, rather than me say you shouldn't have any alcohol, it's bad for you, and they go, that's great, James, yep, sure, I'll do that, and then actually within a month or two we're not working together, or they've stopped following the plan because actually it just doesn't fit for them. And those might be things that change over time, and actually as they feel healthier, they feel they've lost weight and they feel better, naturally those sort of things often drop off when they realize that they don't actually help them as much as they should. But it's that process of moving forwards and actually using those parts of their life which they currently feel comfortable with and slowly changing things.
Just like you mentioned with exercise, you said like exercise shouldn't be something rigorous that somebody doesn't like, that is not fitting into their lifestyle. it's the same thing. I'm guessing the way I'm understanding the foods. It's not about. I mean, like you mentioned, alcohol is bad, but it's not about demonizing alcohol. It's say don't have it, or go and lift heavy weights and kill yourself, and then try to do it again. It's not about that. It's about finding an exercise that fits your lifestyle, whatever it is: running, biking, Zumba, walking, what it is, whatever it fits into your lifestyle. Stick to it. And with the food, it's the same thing. Even though this food it's not the best food, you are allowed to have it um, with moderation, with the changes that you're already making, instead of you dropping your whole program because you're not allowed to have that food.
Right, exactly that.
Okay, perfect. So how do you deal with cravings when you're losing weight?
Different ways. And again, this is one of those things which I like to just work with people and find out what makes them tick, because there's the mental side of things and the physical side of things. Maybe let's start with the mental, which is coming up with strategies to help you understand your goal and to stay away from cravings, or sorry, to resist cravings. So here we're talking about things like having journals and having goals of what you want to do, because often people start with really good intentions, and as they start getting through a plan, or they're going towards their goal, they forget what it is that actually they're after. And having some sort of reminder or journal entry to say, this is what I want to do, is a nice way to just help you refocus and allow you to remember what exactly it is that you want to do. Then I like to talk to people or understand where they get cravings, and actually, is it a true physical craving or is it associated with something? So, for example, is it stress? Is it emotion? Is it something which is essentially psychological, which is causing that craving? So that's again where kind of diary entries and being honest with yourself really comes into it, because if you want to do this properly, you have to be honest. And it's not a case of you're going to be told off or you should feel ashamed of it. It's actually just saying, well, what things trigger me? What things make me want to reach for some chocolate or to go off track? And if you start understanding those, then you can work out, okay, well, is there something in your life that you could change? So is it being triggered by this really stressful, horrible thing you do? Could we do anything to change that? Or, for example, is it simply, and one of the biggest things, is it because it's in the house? And you know that, well, I've got chocolate in the fridge and I'm just going to go and, chocolate in the cupboard. Maybe that's bad to put it in the fridge. Do you just go straight for that because you know it's there? And for personally, I know if I have chocolate in the house, I want to eat it. And the simplest way then to not do that is to not have chocolate in the house. So that might just be talking with them about, could we just try and not buy it? And instead, we go back to the kind of context and moderation. Could you just save that for when you go out for a coffee with a friend and really enjoy a piece of cake or something? So it's that's kind of one side of things.
So you saying being conscious, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, before making that decision, because you don't know if you're really hungry, you're craving it, but it could be mental.
Exactly.
So to conclude the question, the way to deal with cravings is more than anything find out if it's psychological, if you're what's happening, you're stressed. Maybe you can do something different instead of eating. Or for it's physical, such as an example that you give, you have it in the house because it's in the house, you eat it. Once you find out which one it is, maybe you're hungry, instead of having the chocolate in the house. If you're hungry, maybe having fruit and eat it. If it's psychological, just be aware and do other things instead of eating.
I would actually say that the chocolate example is still actually part of the psychological, mental side of things. That's all tied into that. I think we could go a bit deeper in the physical side of things, and I would say there's two things there in terms of how to manage it and reduce cravings. So one of the things that I look at. And I think this is really important because of probably just where we've got to in terms of media, in terms of the diets and the strict diets that happen, is that hunger, that craving, a really important thing to listen to? Because is that person genuinely hungry? And are they just not getting enough calories? Because we want sustainable weight loss, and actually losing weight too fast isn't really beneficial because it's not sustainable. So it may be that that person simply isn't actually eating enough calories for them to comfortably sustain things. So I would want to reevaluate their diet, work out how much they actually are eating in terms of overall calorie amounts, work it out compared to their exercise, and say, okay, do we actually just need to give you 200 or 300 extra calories a day? Because that's still going to put you in a really good position for weight loss. It will just make you be able to tolerate it far better and stick to your diet. And that's one important thing. And I think secondly then is that there are genuine reasons for people to crave as well, not just calories, but the macronutrient profile of what they're eating. So we're thinking of things like fiber and protein. This also comes back to the things like the sugary sweets. Not necessarily bad, but they don't contain much protein or fiber usually. And actually those are the things which are really helpful. So if someone's feeling like they're getting cravings all the time or hungry, do we need to reevaluate their diet, and should they be eating more protein? Should they be eating more fiber? Because we know that those things are going to satisfy someone far more than anything else. So actually, if we made more of a focus to increase their protein with their breakfast and add some more fiber, is that going to make them feel much more satisfied and last throughout the morning until lunch, which then will actually allow them to stick to their calorie intake and their goal?
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so let's go to the next one. I think this is an interesting question. I would like to know as well. There is any foods that increases and boosts your metabolism?
In reality, no, and not to any significant amount. So all of the studies which look at things like pepper or like chili, those sort of things, the amount is very, very minor. We might be talking kind of 50 calories a day at max when you're eating those sort of things. And in terms of kind of the amount of weight that's going to lose, no. And the reason I'm generally pretty strict on this is this falls into the kind of, what can I do to make weight loss easier? Can I essentially take a pill that is going to make it easier? And the answer is not really. If you want to actually be able to lose weight properly and sustainably, you look at the things which really matter. And food that boosts your metabolism isn't really one of them.
Okay. You mentioned that exercise, we don't really need to exercise to lose weight, but it helps. How many hours per week should I exercise for that to count into my weight loss program?
I would first start with just asking how much that person exercises to start with, because it's got to be a gradual approach, because there's not just a kind of one size fits all answer. Because if someone goes into exercising half an hour every day or an hour every day, or way more than they can do, there's two problems. One is that they will become very fatigued very quickly. So they'll find actually it's really difficult to do or sustain more than once or twice. They ache a lot, they hurt, they are sore, they're not able to do it. So there's that sort of consistency side there. But it's also injury risk, because I've also seen it where people start exercising because they're on this new diet, they're on a health kick, and they are so happy and they want to just keep going because they know it helps, and they keep going, and actually within a couple of weeks they're injured. They've got a painful lower back, or they've pulled their Achilles or something, because their body's just not ready. So I would suggest that people start, if they haven't, even something kind of 10-15 minutes a day. That would be the awesome starting point. Then I would want to build it up. Ideally, I would like someone to exercise for 30 minutes a day as a baseline. If they want to do more than that and it fits in their routine, awesome. But in terms of regularity, I would love people to exercise every day because we know there's loads of health benefits from that. And it keeps habit and it keeps them doing it, ticking over. So I think that would be what I would suggest. You can obviously exercise more than that. And again, there are benefits to this. But as a kind of place that I would love to get everyone would be 30 minutes of exercise a day.
So, what do you call exercise? You mentioned that it should fit into the lifestyle. Let's say I want to exercise for 30 minutes. Should I go for a walk? Should I go swim? Should I go run? Should I go hike? Should I go climb? Should I do weightlifting? What is it that you recommend?
Do what you enjoy. And I, especially if you're starting out, would prefer for someone to start on the lower end of the scale. So we're talking exercise that makes you a little bit out of breath. So the sort of one that you actually should be able to hold a conversation while still doing. And for example, you might be able to just about breathe in and out through your nose. For me, that's the kind of starting point for most people, especially if they're new to it, just because it gets them moving. It starts taxing their energy systems, it starts providing the benefits of exercise. And then I would like to build it up because ideally I would love someone to do that 30 minutes a day and probably a couple of times a week do some high intensity exercise. So things that really make them get out of breath, really do tax them. And perhaps, again, this then just is totally dependent on what they want to do and what they enjoy, whether that's like a circuit class, whether it's running and you do some intervals, whether it's swimming, whether it's some Zumba and hard dancing, whatever really, find what works for you and just try and make it so that you enjoy it. But I would love to have that kind of two polar opposites in the week, that you do some really, 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 really easy stuff and some really, really hard stuff.
Okay. Are the rest days important?
Yes. I love a rest day, and I love suggesting that people should have a rest day. I mean, I say 30 minutes of exercise a day, and that's ideal. But I think just caveat with it, if you feel tired and you feel like you need to rest, do it. As I say, a lot of what I would focus on is easy exercise. And so for the majority of people, they shouldn't ever feel so tired that they kind of physically need to rest because they're totally wiped out. But if they need it, yes. And certainly from my point of view, in terms of endurance, nutrition, performance, and we're talking triathlons of people who might be training for 15, 20 hours a week, rest days are absolutely important. And that's a really difficult thing for people to hear a lot of the time, because they feel that they might need to keep training, but actually, like everything, it's about consistency. And for some people, actually having that reset, having a day off, and just allowing to kind of settle, get back to where they should be, is a really useful thing.
Okay. The next question is, is there an optimal body composition for training?
I suppose I should ask, are you referring to anything in particular? So, because I suppose my thoughts there are we talking kind of general daily life? Are we talking triathletes? Are we talking powerlifting? Body composition's a very sport-specific context.
Okay, let's say for what you're specialized on, triathlons, is there any specific body composition for that?
No. There's definite benefit from being lighter, or I should perhaps say not being overweight. But there's a real tendency for people to think that with triathlon, running, or endurance sports, that lighter and leaner is always better. And we get this idea then that we need to keep losing weight to improve performance. And in theory, that's kind of right, in that if you're lighter, running is usually easier. If you're lighter but able to put out the same energy or power on the bike, then you go quicker, because something called your watts per kilo is better. The amount of power you generate is the same, but you're lighter, therefore you go quicker. But the risk is that you start going too far. And I think everyone has a set point in that there's a range of weight where they operate really well in, and going under that doesn't return the same sort of benefits. And it's a really common thing in endurance sports and triathlon for people to go for as lean as possible, but we know it's just actually not the best choice for a lot of people.
So how do people find out? How do they people find out what's the perfect way for them?
There's an element of testing, and what I talk to people about with triathletes or runners who are aiming to lose weight, I ask them to focus on two sides of things, and this might not be surprising, but it's mental and physical. So the physical side of things is, how are they performing? Are they feeling like they're recovering? Are they able to hit the same numbers or the numbers that they are expecting to during training? And are they progressing? If all of those are good and they're maintaining, then either that weight is appropriate, or you could test losing weight and see. If, for example, though, your power or the ability to hold a pace or a certain intensity on the bike or running starts dropping off, then you have your answer actually that something isn't quite right there. I also ask them to think mentally, how do I feel? So I will usually ask them to record some sort of diary in the morning. There's different apps which you can use, or you can just write them down. And then that might be questions like, how prepared do I feel to train today? How motivated do I feel? Am I particularly sore? How tired am I? These are the sort of subjective questions that, again, are used as the overall picture. So if someone's trying to lose weight and they're still actually scoring really positively on all these systems, they're actually saying, yeah, I'm feeling really good, numbers are good, perfect, you can keep going. But when those start dropping off, that gives you a bit of a warning, like to say, maybe we need to reassess this, maybe we need to add more calories, reset. And so it's a bit of a trial and error process, but you make sure you use metrics, subjective and objective.
Got it. Okay, so when your performance start going down, you're losing too much weight.
Generally speaking, there might be others, and it might be a bit more nuanced, but that's the long and short. Yeah.
Okay. Just I have a more couple questions here, so be respectful all your time. And I think this is one that I also want to learn more myself about. How can you get the high protein benefit of a vegetarian diet?
You got to pick the right foods, and it's knowing what they are, and that's, for most people, it takes just a bit of exploring. There's lots of great info about that, but they're essentially using the high protein sources. So one of those which most people know about is dairy products. Dairy generally contains a reasonable amount of protein in it, but what I would suggest, especially if you're specifically opting for a high protein diet, is to use low fat dairy. So we're thinking of things like low fat Greek yogurt, low fat cottage cheese, cream cheese. The way to think about those are kind of like lean meats. So when someone thinks about it from a meat point of view, we think kind of chicken breast or lean beef, lean mince. That sort of equivalent is like low fat dairy. So for the same amount of calories, you get more protein, or you can have the same amount of protein and less calories. So that's a really, really useful food choice for someone to have. Then you've got the things like legumes. So we're thinking of lentils and beans. So those are really great sources of protein. Also contain lots of other helpful nutrients like fiber and micronutrients. So we're thinking vitamins and minerals. And one of the things which I love, which most people don't really realize, is that whole grain carbohydrates contain a reasonable amount of protein. So we're thinking of things like brown rice, brown pasta, quinoa. They actually contain a respectable amount. So if someone, for example, wants to eat more protein as a vegetarian and they're looking for ways to do that, might be one simple thing. It's not going to be huge, but if you do it over the course of the day, swap your white bread for whole grain bread, swap your pasta for white pasta for brown pasta. That's a really simple trick, so really, really great. And then also eggs, like staple vegetarian high protein food, and then soy. So soy you could have as edamame beans. You could have it as tofu, tempeh, soya milk. There's some good options, but that's the kind of main group of high protein veggie foods.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you?
I'm on all handles with Hurry the Food Up and hurrythefoodup.com. And if you want to come and check us out, we've got lots of helpful articles for you and some free vegetarian meal plans. And then also Nutrition Triathlon, again on all handles, and nutritiontriathlon.com if you're interested in endurance sports and learning a bit more there.
Okay, I'll put those links in this interview so people can click on them and follow you. Social media, anything.
So Hurry the Food Up and Nutrition Triathlon. So on Instagram, Twitter, all of those are
perfect. Thank you. I thought you were talking only about your website. Okay, I'll put those links on this interview. Anything else you want to add to this interview?
I think more than anything, I would encourage people to have fun with their food and their exercise and develop a good relationship with both, because that's going to be the biggest key to consistency and happiness.
Thank you. And the last question. What's your biggest weight loss tip?
Pick a diet or pick a lifestyle that is sustainable.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much for this interview. It has been great. I really appreciate it. Let's stay in contact and follow James, everybody. He has given a lot of great tips and knowledge about how we can lose weight, and a lot of he has get rid of a lot of misconceptions here as well. So get this information, and thank you so much for continuing following us. Let's tune in the next episode.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed the content offered here, then I know you will enjoy these books. These are great tools to lead you to successful weight loss, better health, and greater happiness.